All right, now for this week's homework, week 4, what you're going to want to do is begin your tracing. If you didn't start last week, you would begin your tracing this week. And what you would need to do is download the project templates. And to download the project templates, you would click here or here. I'm going to be downloading the vertical template because my composition is a vertical one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click here and I'm going to download the linked file as a file to my desktop. And I'm just going to go ahead and now you could put it in your save folder in your don't delete. I'm going to just notice it'll say your name project final vert. I'm going to take this off and I'm actually going to put my name here. Okay, and then I'm going to hit save. All right, now it should be in my save folder and I'm going to minimize this here. I'm going to go to my desktop and locate the file. It should be in my save folder under my name, and it should be the vertical one here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open this. And now you might notice that it gives you an error. If that's the case, it's because it has this extra extension. Sometimes that downloads, sometimes it won't, it'll open just fine. I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click it so I can delete this part of it. Now, if I hit here, it'll tell me if I want to keep the PS extension or use AI. I'm going to use the AI because I am certain that this is an Illustrator file. And now it removed that extension and I should be able to double click it and it opens up just fine. Now when it opens up, you will have the file and you'll notice your layers are open here. If they're not, remember to go to Windows and go to Layers and make sure that that's selected. Okay, and you're going to notice that there's an instructions layer and an organization layer and a sketch scan layer. And on the instruction layers, you have this set of instructions. They're turning on and off there. And basically it tells you how to go about placing your file, and also the second layer goes about how to organize your file. So I'll turn that one off and turn it on here just to remind you about layer organization. And then the third layer here is for you to place your scan and then lock it when you're done. So in these instructions here, it tells you how to file, place your document, to browse for your composition, to unlink to check off the link box when that happens, and then to click the place button, and then it tells you to rename your existing layer, and then you go down here and it tells you how to begin tracing your file, and it gives you some kind of tips and reminders on what to put in what layer, what to put in sub layers, and then also goes through a series of reminding you to use all the tools that you've learned thus far. And it just basically gives you little tips and tricks, and it also refers you to the organization layer of this file. And that's basically this layer that we were referring to. Just in case you don't remember, if you want to look at how other files are organized, you could take a look in here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn back on the instruction layers, and I'm going to go back to the instructions. It tells me to go to File, Place, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off these instructions here. All right, and I'm going to go to File, Place. Whoops. You'll notice I can't place something right now because it's locked, so I'm going to go to the sketch scan layer, and I'm going to go File, Place. I have mine on the desktop and it's just named Robert. Robert is the person who actually did the sketch. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that this is centered. Once I have it centered, what I want to do is I hit lock, and that's what those instructions basically say, and it tells you to rename your layer. It's already named SketchCan. I would try to leave it as SketchCan. All right. Now you notice if I try to draw here because it's locked, I'm not able to. So basically what the instructions tell you to do is to start creating new layers and then to start drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and put this at the very top up here. These I'm basically going to ignore now. You could delete them once you're done with them. I like to keep them there just in case I need to reference them, especially like the organization layer. Okay, so if we wanted to look at like how I'm supposed to organize, what I'm supposed to create layers for and sub layers for. Okay, now basically it's telling me that layers are used to organize the major objects, and then the sub layers are used to organize all those parts of those objects. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and when I'm building, I'm going to turn off these organization. When I'm building, the way that you want to draw usually, and just so that things start laying themselves down in order, is I want to try to draw the objects that are the furthest in the back. So for instance, either this back wall here, or the sky, which is even further behind it, or things that are completely underneath, like the ground is underneath all of these objects. So in this case, I would want to go through and start drawing the ground. Now I'm not going to worry when I draw the ground. I just draw a box here. Now I'm going to go ahead and select a color, and this is what the instructions also say. Select a color that's going to pop out. So you don't want to use black or gray because everything is black and gray. You want to choose a color that's going to pop out. I'm also going to change the stroke a little bit thicker just so that I can see it. Okay, I don't worry about tracing all alongside of these edges and around the guy's head to do the ground here, any of this, because I know that eventually that line is going to be defined when I create this fountain and place it on top of it. That's going to define this space here. And when I create this guy, that's going to create this border around him. So I don't worry about it. I just know that these objects are going to sit on top of this ground, and that's going to be that's going to avoid me having to do extra work such as tracing all around the edges of these for the ground. Okay, so then I would call this background or ground. I'm going to call it background. Okay, and then in the background I also have this sky back here, so you could just draw this sky back here, and don't worry about choosing a color for it. Again, it's not necessary. Okay, so this one would be the sky. Now if I open this up, you'll notice that I have two layers. One is for the sky and the other one is for the ground here. I would want to make sure I name these, so I'll call this one ground and I'll call this one, just double checking it's it, yeah, sky. Okay, and then you would just continue to draw different things. You could draw all the mountains together and call them mountains or waterfalls. These are actually waterfalls. Okay, and you would want to build basically the things that are in the furthest in the back and kind of build upward. So one of the last things that you'll be drawing, the last layers that, or objects that you'll be drawing, are the guy, the dog, and the buffalo, because he's in the foreground. He's in the foreground and he's in the foreground. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you some examples of how you would trace this. I'm going to go ahead and build another layer here. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one mountains. And I'm going to go up here to the mountains. And I'm going to go ahead and create some of these mountains. And I'm going to make sure that I'm on my pen tool. And again, the key is to always create closed shapes, not just lines. I know it looks like just lines, but you want to create shapes. So you would come in here and say that I see this mountain here. I would want to come in here and notice that I'm tracing around these without any fill color, but just a stroke so that I can actually see what I'm tracing. And I'm just going to come around, come around, come around. And I'm using my pen tool. You can use whatever tool, be it the brush or the pencil tool, that allows you to create what you want to create more easily. And also that it looks better. The key is that it looks better and that it's easier. And I'm going to come around, and in here I'm not going to worry about tracing right along this edge of the wall, because I know this wall is going to come on top of it. Okay, so as I continue, I'm not going to worry about whether I'm going right along that edge. I'm actually going to create some little bit of overlap. Okay, some overlapping areas, so that when I end up removing the outline and these things overlay on top of each other, this area here won't have like a little gap or a sliver in between the two shapes. I want there to be a clear overlap. Okay, so you'll notice I closed the shape. I went all the way around and make sure I got that indicator key. I'm going to go ahead and undo so you can see me do that. I'm going to continue here and see that little round circle right next to the pen tool. That lets me know that I'm closing the shape. And that's important that you draw in this format, because when you eventually color in, I'm just going to go ahead and reverse these two colors so you can see, you're going to get this nice solid. Okay. Now, what some of you, I'll notice that you guys do, is that you guys just draw lines where you see them, like here. Then you're not going to be able to color in, so I'm just going to show you some of the examples that I've seen. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my pen tool, and some people will go in here and they'll do this fine, you know. Here, I'm going to go ahead and remove my fill and reverse it to my stroke here. Okay, and then they'll stop here because they see that that's where the line meets up with another object. You don't just want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. I'll see people that do this, and then they go ahead and they grab, again, the brush tool, and then they start doing this. And then they stop here, okay? And then sometimes, I think a lot of people that do this tend to be using the pencil tool or the brush tool, so then they do, I'm just going to grab the brush tool for instance, then they'll do something like this, and then they'll do something like, do something like this, and they'll do something like this. And that's not the way you want to draw, because when it comes time to fill this object, you're not going to be able to just fill this object. Say that you want to add fill color to this inside area, you're not going to be able to just reverse it. It's going to do something weird like that. If you try to fill this in, it's going to do something weird like that. And what you want to do is be able to fill in your mountain like this, and then later add on some other shapes on it, okay? So you don't want to do this. You always, even if you're using the brush or the pen tool, you want to create and look at the whole shape, even if it runs into other objects. Okay, so I just deleted all of that. You want to go all the way around. So what you would want to do is, I'm just going to use the brush tool so you see. And in one of those videos on the brush tool earlier on in the lessons, you saw that we were drawing this way. So you can use this tool, because for some people it's going to be easier, and for this type of thing like a mountain, it's pretty ideal. Okay, but in here, I don't worry that there's this object that it runs into. I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to go all the way through. I'm going to let there be some overlap. And I'm going to come back around, okay? And as I approach the end, I'm going to hold down my Alt-Option key. You're going to see that little circle indicator. See, I'm turning it on and off right there by holding down the Alt key on a Mac. I'm sorry, Alt key on a PC or a Mac. You want to do Option key, okay? It's the same key there. And then you just release, and it just joined it. And now you can fill it in with color. I'm just going to go ahead and select it. And I'm going to reverse it, okay? Granted, your mountains are probably not going to be red. They're going to be, or these waterfalls are going to be a different color here. It's up to you what color you end up choosing, something that makes sense, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reverse these back out so that they're in outline format, because that's what you want to do. Notice I picked a color that pops out from the background so I can see what I've already traced. All right, now I called them mountains. They're really waterfalls. You know, you call them whatever you want. That helps you be able to figure out what they are. Usually something that makes sense, okay? All right, and then I'm going to create another layer here, and I'm going to create this for these objects here, the taps, okay? So I'm just going to go call it taps. And now what I want to do is, I don't want to just create the whole silhouette of this object, because these are different shapes that are going to be filled with different colors. I want to create shapes for all the different areas that are going to be filled with different colors, okay? That includes things that are going to be like shadows and highlights, or like little ridges and rims and things like this, just like we drew them here. We want to trace them, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create, I like working with my pen tool. You don't have to. I like it because I have control over my line a little bit better. All right, notice there's some overlap here. It's fine. I'm going in here. A lot of times you'll notice as I scroll over areas that are already traced, kind of like in this area, it starts selecting these other areas a little bit, and it starts getting distracted. You can start locking some of those areas, all right? See the little circle indicator? I'm going to go ahead and click. That lets me know it's closed, okay? I'm going to lock these mountains just so that I don't accidentally move them or click on them and attach points to them that I don't want to, okay? Similarly on these taps here, I can go ahead and once I'm done with that tap, I can lock it, okay, so that it doesn't move around, okay? All right, and then I'm going to create another shape for here. I'm going to make sure I'm still on my taps here. I only locked the path that I drew earlier. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click, click. All right, and then again, I don't worry that there's this overlap. I'm just going to come straight across here and then go around, okay? And then I'm going to, that finished my, it closed my path. I'm going to go ahead and start another one. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here. And it looks like there's this other little layer here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this here, and I'm going to go across. Then I'm going to start another one. It looks like there's another one in here, so I can add different colors to them to make it look more three-dimensional. And again, I'm just going to cut into this one here so that there's some nice overlap, and I'm going to cut across. Now I'm going to go and do this one, 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 and I'm going to cut across, okay? And now I'm going to go ahead and just so that you see, you're not coloring these in now, but just so that you get a better sense of when you do color in, why you want to draw this way and not this other way, as we mentioned earlier, the one that we had done on here that was just lines. Then we'll be able to control this color where we can go like, this is blue, and then this could be a, whoops, slightly darker blue, and then this could be, I'm going to select that color we already have there, but I'm going to go even darker here. Okay, and there's going to be a lesson on coloring as well. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these outlines. I'm holding down Shift to multiple select these objects. I'm going to go ahead and remove the outline. And that way you can build something that's kind of stacked. Okay, now I'm going to zoom into this. Notice, it looks a little funny here. It's not clean, but that doesn't matter because I can rearrange these and I can perfect these. Right now I can bring this object here up. That's this one here that has a little selected area. I'm going to bring it up here. And notice how it just blocked out that ugly curvy area. Now notice when there's not enough overlap like here, that becomes a little bit of a problem. So I'd have to go in here and try to select this point and make it create an overlap so that you don't get any little gaps inside like we saw there. Okay, notice here it looks funny. I don't care that that looks funny because I have this shape that even though right now it's not drawn on top, I can rearrange over to the top and then I can fill it with color. I don't know, I'm just assigning random colors here, but I can do that. And then, no, this tab is locked. Alright, I didn't name these very well. This is in the tabs. Here it is. It's locked here. Alright, now I can select it and I can assign color to it, remove the outline. And that's how you see things being built. Okay, now again, I may have not traced this exactly the way I wanted to. I can kind of open this up a little bit, modify these. So the key is that you still need to learn your modifier keys even if you're not drawing with the pen tool to make this look a little bit more round, more organic. Okay, and you can always clean these up. So don't worry if you don't get it perfect the first time around. I'm going to make suggestions for you to improve those anyways. Okay, so you can always modify these. Okay, notice this one actually is supposed to sit on top. I drew this one just straight across. That looks a little weird. So I'm going to grab this one, which is this one here, and I'm going to move it up. Okay, and I have to move it up on top of this one even further. All right, and now you'll notice that it's sitting and now it made that curve. Okay, so the goal is that you build these shapes on top of shapes. When you have like different shapes like this, you can start assigning color that becomes darker, and then it makes it look a little bit more graded, a little bit more round, that type of thing. Okay, so you'd continue building, always closing the shapes, because if you just draw the lines, if I were just to go in here and grab my brush tool and just draw this line here, and just draw a line here, and then say that I drew another line here for this. Okay, when I try to, oops, I'm going to zoom in here. Sometimes your brush strokes will disappear if you draw right over them. Okay, if I were to try to assign color to these, okay, say that I grab all these three right here, and then I say, all right, let's change the color in here. Notice it's not filling in because they're not closed shapes. Okay. Now what you could do is if you wanted to close these shapes, there is in the brush tools video a lesson on how to join these. Now you could do them a number of ways. You can do, you can go to the end point here, wait for that slanted line, and then connect this to this. Okay, and you can join that one, wait for the slanted line, connect that to that. See the little circle item next to it. Okay, then you can grab this and connect this to this. So if you were already in that situation where you created them as lines and you want to connect them, you can use the pen tool to do that. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to just create some other ones so that you can see if you've done them a different way. Say that you've drawn half of this like this. Oh, that wasn't very good, but okay, it smoothed it out. And then you did this one like this. And now you kind of have what you need to have, but they're not filled shapes, so that when you fill them, see how it just creates this and this just creates this? Okay, so what you could do is, I'm going to go ahead and back and undo it. They're not filling correctly, but you can grab that item, hold down shift, grab the other item, and you can do a join, which is object, path, and then join. All right, and notice that it closed up the gap here. It didn't do the bottom one, so you can do it again. Object, path, join. And now it did the bottom here. Okay, so that kind of closed it off for you. Notice it just does a straight line across. So in some cases it'll work fine when it just does a straight line across, but sometimes you don't want that, so you might need to go in there and modify. Okay, so key to remember, try to create overlapping closed shapes as you're building your items. Okay, and then also if you don't, for whatever reason, and you're already at that point where you didn't, but you have a good outline lines, just lines set, you might consider joining them. Otherwise, you're going to need to redraw them. Okay, so key things: overlapping shapes, overlapping closed shapes. Okay, you can either draw them closed as you go, or you can modify them to be closed afterwards, but you need to have them be closed eventually. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like as you start tracing a little bit forward, okay? Here. I'm going to go ahead and open this. All right, now here we have outlines. This is an example of what you're going to want to do. You're not going to want to worry about coloring it. And now you'll notice this is the, let me see if I can grab it here, the ground layer. Oh, see how they start getting tricky to grab here. I bet you I can find it here. I'm going to lock that layer, make sure that layer's locked. It's part of the background layer. See, for instance, this one is the sky layer. All right. Make sure I name it. And that one is that background, that ground layer. Okay. And now the sky layer, again, like I said, I don't worry that things aren't traced when I do the sky, like right along the edges of the other things, because those things are going to sit on top of it, in particular because of the structure. See if we close all these layers here. The buffalo, the dog, everything goes in order based on what's furthest behind. So this is the background that has the sky and the ground and all of that. And then there's the waterfalls that sit on top of that. And then we have the tap wall. So like when this one eventually, once everything is traced and these things start getting colored in, and this one becomes like a blue color, for instance, I don't worry because these things are going to sit on top of it. I'm just going to change the color of this one as well. We're going to get rid of all the outlines eventually. But basically all these things are going to be sitting on top, and as we start building all of these areas, I'm going to change this one right here, they're going to be the ones that cover up all of this below, okay? And eventually we're going to get rid of all of the outlines on our entire piece, and it's going to start looking something like that, okay? I'll show you the example of the file once it's more finished. We're going to go here. Okay, and so I don't worry. See, this is that background layer. It's a big block that's just sitting on top of it. Oops, I can't see that. I got a frame around here. Okay, it's just a big block that's just sitting back there. Okay, again, I don't worry about tracing that little edge around because I know that there's going to be these different objects that are going to be sitting on top of it. Okay, and that's just based on the way that these are built. Okay, and you can always reorganize these. If you don't draw them in that particular order, you can always reorganize them. What's important is that you remember to create layers for the major objects and then sub-layers for the major parts of those objects, okay, so that you can keep things somewhat organized as you move along, okay. Start noticing it starts becoming difficult to select certain things here, so knowing what layer it's in and what it's called is pretty helpful, okay. Now this frame layer I created by using the Pathfinder. I basically did that donut effect where I created a big sheet of paper and then I cut out a hole inside of it, and that's how we got this, okay. So you don't need to do that. I just put them there because I like to look at a clean composition as opposed to that. But this would print just fine. It would go along the edge of my canvas, okay. So you would just continue this like I mentioned. One thing to keep in mind is to keep your sketch locked if at all possible, okay, so that it doesn't keep moving around as you're tracing. And then also, I'm going to go back to this one here. As you keep your sketch scan locked, if for some reason it starts disappearing on you, what you want to remember is that you're probably transporting it from a computer from your home to the school, and you forget the actual scan. That means that you didn't click that link box when you placed it. If that's the case and you forgot to click the link box, like this one, it'll say link here. What you can remember to do is when you're at home and it is working fine, or unless you have to replace it, meaning file, place it again, what you would want to do is you would want to select that link, and under window there's this panel called links, and here it's telling me that it's just a link. If I go here to this little corner and I go to embed image, you'll notice it gets this little icon here. That means that the image is embedded. Once that image shows up as embedded, which it should do if you uncheck that link box when you initially place it, it will always show up in there, okay? So now I would want to save this, make sure that I save the file, save. Okay, I just saved it basically where I had it in the save folder, and then you can go ahead and lock your layers again, okay? So just in case you don't do it to begin with and that starts disappearing on you, you want to make sure that you, when you are at home and it is appearing in there, or just go ahead and place it again and then make sure you embed it, okay? Another thing that might happen is if you do have it linked and it's not embedded, if you rename that file, it is going to start looking for a file that was named something else on your desktop, and it's never going to find it. So make sure you just embed it. It's going to save you all the trouble when you go to File, Place. I got to get out of here. Sorry. I'm going to go up here. Okay. Go to File, Place. It didn't allow me to place it over there because the layer was locked. It won't allow you to draw on anything if it's locked, so you always have to remember to unlock it. You want to go in and say that you get that PNG, that file here, the beer garden one. You want to make sure you uncheck this. If that's checked, it's going to link, and if you rename it or if you move it, it's going to disappear on you. So what you want to do is make sure you have that unlinked and then hit place. Okay, I'm going to just cancel. All right. So that is your lesson. Don't try to color in. It's going to be really tempting to color in. You're just going to waste time because then there's going to be things that you need to probably draw on top of it, and you're going to start getting in your own way as you color things in. Okay, so don't color in, just trace. Right? And at the end of this week, after having traced about 75%, if you have it all done, even greater, even better, you want to turn it into assignment 4, the homework assignment, okay? So load it up into La Lima under assignment week 4. Now this is the time in the semester where people stop turning things in. So what you want to make sure is that you turn in this progress. This is essential. It's one of the major things to show progress. If you don't show progress, then I can't give you feedback or the help that you need. So make sure you turn in something. Something is better than nothing. Ideally, you have what's required, you know, the 75% to 100% traced. But if not, just turn in whatever you have. I want to see where you're going, because otherwise, if I don't see anything, I'm going to assume you have nothing, and I'm going to dock it as if you have nothing. All right. This concludes the homework for week 4, how to trace, how to begin tracing. If you have any questions, please be sure to contact me.